Hello everyone, I'm Mal and welcome to the inaugural episode of Nutrition for Your Mind. Today we're going to talk about BioWare's tentpole game, or what I think was supposed to be the tentpole game, Anthem. So I, like many people, was excited for Anthem and highly anticipated playing the demo, convinced several of my friends to try it as well, other YouTubers and streamers. And I have to say that unfortunately BioWare has, I don't know what's happened. I don't know if they've lost their soul or what have you, and I'm really going to focus more on that today. I mean, there's plenty of videos out there that are just going to bash Anthem, and they've had all kinds of recent problems. Matter of fact, in recent days, the PS4 version is like, people are reporting that it's just bricking their PS4. That's obviously not good. But I'm not going to talk about that so much as just really what happened. What was the breakdown? Was it the change of personnel within BioWare itself, in the creative team that did this? Was it, the publisher's influence on BioWare, which, I guess... the people that are there are saying that's not the case, that they were largely able to develop the game the way they wanted to. So then I have to ask myself, well, what really led to some of those design decisions? And I was talking to a buddy of mine the other day. We had both played the demo, and we both play Destiny 2. So there's going to be some obvious comparisons since they're both quote-unquote looter shooters. And as we were contrasting the differences, I think there was two core things that historically, when you think about Mass Effect, when you think about the Inquisition series, when Dragon Age and whatnot, a couple of things that BioWare has always done, Knights of the Old Republic is another good example of this, is that they make you feel as though your character is really important to the story. Fundamentally important, that without you, it just couldn't happen. And let's face it, when you play games, particularly ones like this, where it's about the acquisition of items and leveling up, go fight, smash, whatever, figure something out, get another piece of gear, get more powerful, go after the next thing. Feeling as though your character is A, central to the story, and B, at times powerful. You don't want to be without challenge, of course, but feeling powerful, I think, is an important part of the experience. So, as my friend and I were talking about this, and contrasting it against Destiny, that was one of the first things that we noticed when we played the demo, was that the guns, the weapons didn't feel substantial, even when you used, what was supposed to be kind of like your hammer 'em down super abilities. It was interesting. The combat was interesting, to an extent, but it sort of dragged on, and it seemed like you could very easily be killed, which really was kind of a troubling sign for me, because the demo was set up right is that you were essentially higher level and you would level up faster and experience more of the content. So this may be different. It may be a different experience when you start off fresh in the quote unquote retail release. That may be the case. My experiences are based off of the demo. But what I can tell you is that it didn't feel like that, again, when I contrasted it against something like Destiny 2, which from the beginning you get involved in the story, and you get invested, and you do feel, I do anyway, that right from the get-go, you feel like, you're important, right? Because you're the only one that essentially has the powers. The other Guardians, and I'm talking about Destiny 2 here, you don't, and at least that's the narrative, right? And that the weapons feel substantial, that doesn't carry over, or Anthem, which borrowed a lot of things, I think, from a lot of different looter shooters, didn't seem to borrow that part, that it's important for people to feel like they're making an impact. The other thing with Anthem, and there's tons of reviews on Anthem about, talking about the things that don't work well. And I'm not going to delve into each of those, but what I will echo is that there are some things that obviously do need to be addressed. The pacing of the game, the story, which is the part for me that was the most disappointing, because I love BioWare. And after Mass Effect Andromeda, which quite frankly broke my heart, I thought, well, that's okay. That's okay, because they've made some of the greatest games ever. The original Knights of the Old Republic, the Mass Effect series, with the exception of Andromeda. I loved all the DLC. I mean, I actually have a complete Let's Play of the entire Mass Effect series on my channel. And I did that series after really Mass Effect's heyday. I just did it because I really loved the game and wanted to share it with people, that experience. And I thought, well, Anthem, based on everything I had read coming up to the release, it's going to be like that. It's going to, it's really going to restore my faith in BioWare. So personally, I took the failings of Anthem, and some of the key areas that have been talked about that need to be addressed, besides the story, besides the pacing, besides whether or not your character feels central to everything that's going on or powerful or what have you, is also some other fundamental things that BioWare has traditionally done very well. The interface, the aesthetics of the game, the music, and anytime there was a quote unquote like big bad type event, right, where you get to the end of a chapter or something in the story and you had to fight some big bad, that was really, I think, what did it in for myself and a couple of my friends. Is we went on expedition, I believe it's referred to, and we ended up fighting this big walker robot thing. Looked almost identical to the ones that are in public events in Destiny 2, if you're familiar with those. And two of us kind of knew what we were doing, and two people didn't, which obviously would impact things, sure. But it took the four of us the better part of 25 minutes in what felt like a very hollow fight to take this big bad on. And it just wasn't fun. The combat was not particularly engaging. It took way too long to do this because this wasn't like some kind of epic raid or, some, end of some, like I said, some big storyline. This was just essentially, a mission, a quest or what have you. And that was disappointing. Some of the highlights, the free flight, which I think is really cool. That being able to fly and explore, I think is awesome, but it's also tempered by the fact that your thrusters overheat and you have to manage that. And I guess that makes sense because otherwise you'd just fly all the time, right? You'd get in combat and you would just hover in the air, which my experience was the more often you went in the air, the more often your character died, because it seems like as soon as you go airborne, every single enemy is gonna go gunning for you. At least that was what happened to me. So I learned very quickly, let's stay on the ground and in particular behind cover as much as possible, obviously, because the enemies, seemingly never missed, and you didn't want to be in the air. But I think that Anthem is, a lot of people are saying it's a horrible game. I don't think that's the case. And to some degree, I think when you're talking about a publisher and a development house like BioWare, the bar is really high for them. I mean, even after the disappointment of Mass Effect Andromeda, it's sort of damned if you do and damned if you don't, right? So I think they tried some things. They lifted some things from within the genre itself, which is what everyone does. Everyone borrows. But it just wasn't done as cleanly or as polished or as sharp as past BioWare efforts. And so I was left wanting and disappointed overall in Anthem. And I don't know if it can be, quote unquote, saved or improved. I think it can become a decent looter shooter, right? Something that stands up at least fairly well against its competitors in the space. I think that that's possible. Now, will it ever be a title that stands tall next to past successes within BioWare, essentially BioWare competing with itself? No, I don't. Because it's just the core part of it, the essence of the game, and how they chose to indoctrinate you into this new world and the story and how you're linked to everything, it just falls short. And again, my experiences are based on the demo, so there may be more things that I haven't seen or haven't heard, and there may be future DLC or expansions that address this. You know, when you contrast that, again, Destiny 2 is the most obvious thing to do. I thought that the Destiny 2 story was really cool. I did. But I actually was more impressed with the expansion Forsaken. Like, I was invested in the characters. This is how you know you've got good writing, okay? I was so invested in what was going to happen to the characters, and I won't spoil it for those of you that haven't played it, but there is an important character in the stories when you get into the Forsaken expansion of Destiny 2, and one of those characters dies. And I'm not kidding you. My friend didn't tell me ahead of time, and he'd already played through it, and I hadn't spoiled anything for myself. And when we got to that moment, and I was like, "What? No, that didn't happen, really?" And my buddy confirmed, "Oh yeah, no, that happened. It's done. That character's dead." I was actually legitimately pissed. I was mad, not at the developers, not at the game, but like mad at what had happened because I was invested in that character. I got none of that emotional, visceral reaction to anything that I saw or heard in Anthem. I just didn't care. And that doesn't make it a bad game. It doesn't. Again, it might be end up being a good looter shooter, but in terms of being a really good role-playing game, in addition to being a looter shooter, if that was the intent, if the intent was that it was going to be this mix of both worlds, both role-playing and looter shooter, then I would say the looter shooter thing still really needs work, and they failed quite badly on the role-playing side of it. The story part, the management of your actual character stats and things like that, which at least from what I was in the game in the demo, you can't even see all the details. There's like nothing. There's no feedback. So how is it in any way really a role-playing experience if the story is weak and not compelling and you're not emotionally invested? Well, my answer to that is that it's not. So if you want to play a looter shooter game and you want some role-playing elements and a game that is being actively developed and works, and quite frankly is more fun, then my recommendation would be don't spend your money on Anthem. Go buy Destiny 2. They just came out with another season pass that allows you to level up your characters very, very quickly, and you can go through all this content that you haven't done before, which I've done recently myself, by the way. And I think you'll find what you were looking for. If you were looking for a BioWare level story and interesting mechanics and a fun time and really get emotionally invested, unfortunately you're not going to find it in Anthem, in my opinion, but you would find it in Destiny 2. So anyway, I'm going to sign off now. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. This is a very different kind of video for me. If you did, let me know in the comments. If you didn't, let me know in the comments. Hit that thumbs up or thumbs down. I do appreciate any kind of respectful conversation. We can go back and forth, and if you disagree with me, that's just fine, but let's try to keep a respectful tone both ways. I would greatly appreciate that. Thanks so much for watching. Till next time, I'm Mal, and I'll see you later.